Okay, okay.
Okay, first of all, Marita, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's a treat to be with you today.
Thank you. Okay, so I have to say, you grew up in this world of personality psychology. What was that like at such a young age, seeing that?
Well, at the time it just seemed totally normal because that was my life. So,
Yeah.
yeah, since I was 9 years old, my parents kind of got involved in this because my mother read a book by Tim LaHaye called Spirit Controlled Temperament.
Oh,
And that
wow.
book was life changing for my mother. And Tim LaHaye kind of brought the topic of the personalities into this era, not really this generation because it was so long ago, but into this era. And then
Hmm.
my mother really popularized it. She and Tim LaHaye later became friends, and he was like, Florence, you go with this, have a good time with it. And he was totally great with her because he had since moved on. And
Yeah.
so she kind of became the holder of this topic.
Wow. Okay, so at what point did you realize this was not going to just be your mother's work, that it was going to be yours too?
Well, it was an evolution. When like I said, my parents started looking at this topic and ultimately teaching it in our home in a couples setting in the living room. And this was, almost 60 years ago. So this was long before people did book clubs or group
Yeah.
studies and before churches had small groups. So they were a little bit ahead of their time on that. And for me, growing up in this, and like I said, it wasn't, like eye opening to me because it's just kind of what we did.
Yeah.
What I did see is that for my parents and their marriage, even though it
Mm.
was almost subconscious for me, life got better because
Wow.
my parents were more connected.
Yep.
And my mother didn't feel like my father was out to get her as she had previously kind of felt because her personality type is the type very much like mine. She and I were very much two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
And her personality type was the type that's kind of loud and outgoing and tends to run late, has too many things to do in any given day. And my father is the real meticulous, organized, on time type.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very easy for him to make her feel like she was wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
so understanding the personalities, as we now call it, was really life changing for them. But I began to have a different view of it from my parents when I started working, which for me was early teenage years. I worked
Yeah.
in fast food. And when you think about it, when you go to work, is the first time that you have to get along with people that you don't necessarily like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, before that, if there's people you don't really like, you don't play with them.
Right.
You don't invite them to your house or you don't go to their house or whatever. But
Yep.
when you're working, you really have to get along with people
Mm-hmm.
that you maybe don't like. And
Yeah.
I began because I had this foundational knowledge from a young age. When I was working, I was able to identify the personality type of the people that I was working with, and while I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, I was then adjusting my expectations of that person
Wow.
based on being able to go, okay, this one's the popular sanguine. This is the powerful choleric, and so on. And then later I learned how to really add the real life changing component, which I didn't really care about for the people I worked with, but I didn't know it then anyway. And that is how to meet the emotional needs of those people.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
that's
That's
that's where
huge.
the real change happens. And the key thing that's important is that requires a level of caring, that you
Yeah.
have to care about that other person and that bigger relationship. And maybe I don't care that much with the people I work with, but in my spouse, my parents, my children, my good friends, whatever, those are relationships that I care about. And so I want to make those relationships work. And the personalities is a tool to allow us to do that.
I love that. I mean, I was in sales and in sales training for the majority of my whole corporate career. And we did take a lot of different personality testings, and I'm sure you know them all. But I think what really struck me was that it is so interesting to learn things about ourselves. But my initial reaction was always like, I wonder how this will change how leaders behave with other people in the organization that are not leaders, right? Like the people who are more focused on the selling or the people that are doing all of the other kind of behind the scenes work. How will it change the way they interact? And I don't really know that I ever saw it, like their changed behavior,
Uh-huh.
but that doesn't
Well,
necessarily
I
mean it
think
didn't happen. Yeah.
one of the things that's different in our approach, and I say our, meaning my mother and myself, my mother's deceased now, she's been gone 6 years, but that we worked on this together. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things I think that is different about my approach from some of those that you might have been familiar with before is really an emphasis on those other relationships. Many
Yeah.
of the programs out there, they you take a personality profile of some type and they tell you you are this. And that's kind of where it ends.
Yeah.
And for us, that's the beginning.
Right.
That's just the starting place. And I know that you took our online personality profile before we talked.
I did.
And I
Yes.
hope that you read, I hope you read all the material leading into it because we
I
have
did.
a little module on the website that says you are here.
Yep.
And it talks about this being the starting place. And
Yeah.
understanding who you are is great, but if you don't know how to apply that
Yes.
in your relationships, all you have is a label.
Yep.
And I use in our system, as I kind of already mentioned, I use the original Greek word because my mother and I didn't come up with this. Tim LaHaye did not come up with this. This general concept is thousands of years old and originally is credited to Hippocrates, the great Greek thinker, that
Mm-hmm.
he observed that there were people out there who were different from him.
Yeah.
And he tried to figure out with the limited medical and scientific knowledge available in that day, he tried to figure out what makes people different. And
Yeah.
he concluded that what made people different is they had different fluids in their body.
Oh,
And
I
that's
had no
why the
idea.
Greek words, anyone that has any knowledge of medicine
Mm-hmm.
recognizes that the word sanguine means blood.
Wow.
And so he concluded that the ones that he called sanguine, which is kind of what I'm at least 50% of,
Me too. Yep.
they were the loud, the fun loving, the outgoing kind of person. And he concluded that's because they had red hot blood coursing through their veins and
That
so
is
on.
so
So
cool.
there's these difficult to pronounce Greek words.
Yes.
In my mother's book on this topic, which is right up there on the shelf behind me, Personality Plus, she used just the Greek words.
Yeah.
But as I was a young kid traveling with my mother, and I would go with her as she started, like I said, just a little group in their living room. And over
Yeah.
the years, it grew, and she wrote a book on it. She became very famous for it. She's written 40 books.
Wow.
And so I would travel with her, and I would be in the back of the room selling that personality profile that my father developed that you took.
Yep.
Though at the time it was, typewritten and mimeographed and stapled together.
Yeah.
But I'd be in the back of the room. And so people would come up to me. And as they would come up to me and ask questions, because my mother had other people usually around her, I began to see what people kind of didn't get.
Yeah.
And so part of what they didn't get is they couldn't say those funny words.
Yeah.
And so I added to the overall product a modern day adjective
Okay. Very cool. That's so
and a
smart.
color and a color. And I
Yep.
tell people, you know what? I don't care whether you use the Greek word, the modern day adjective, both of them, or if you use a color, because this is not about labels. It's about relationships.
Yes.
And as I said, I think one of the big things that's different from what we do about what others do is this is just a starting place.
Yeah. Well, can we break them down a little bit? Like, I know there's
Or,
four different temperaments. And so everybody, I assume, has a little bit of each one.
right,
And you
right.
have one that's
I like to
dominant.
have for people that can see, I like to have a color wheel to kind of show that like I'm about this combination, about
Yeah.
50% the yellow and about 50% the red. Some are yellow and green combo, so it
Yep.
goes on. So no one, and that's one of the things important to realize too, because people who poo-poo this kind of stuff, they'll say, oh, well, you're just trying to put me in a box. And no, we're just having a common vocabulary
Yes.
to describe a set of characteristics. And very few people are just exactly one.
Yes.
So we have what we like to call the popular sanguine personality, represented by the color yellow.
Yeah.
That's like, think your typical happy face.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, we're the little happiness pill of the world. And so that's the popular sanguine, the fun, outgoing kind of person, usually has a loud voice, usually has a lot of gestures, tends to like to wear bright colors, especially for women. Men don't have the
Yeah.
volume of choices that we have, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Then I like to go next to the perfect melancholy personality. And that would
Oh.
be if we arrange them the way I'm showing. Now, I'm sorry, Mel, are we all audio or all video or
No,
what?
it's video too. Like
Okay.
I upload them to YouTube so
Okay.
people can
So,
watch and see that. Yeah.
yeah. So for those who are watching, I'm holding an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with 2 squares on the top and 2 squares on the bottom. And even for those of you who are not watching, you can get this in your head. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But for our system, the way we like to teach this, that arrangement is very important.
Yeah.
So we have the popular sanguine, and I start there not because just it's what I am, but because it's the easiest to spot.
Yeah.
Even as children, the mom will say about a child who's talking up a total stranger, and mom will say, oh, she's never met a stranger. Well,
Yep.
that would be the popular sanguine.
Yeah.
Okay? Then the opposite, and arranged that way. So the popular sanguine, for those of you who are listening, would be on the top left side of the page. On the bottom right side of the page is the perfect melancholy personality. And I like to go to that one next because they are the opposite of the popular sanguine. So if you understand the popular sanguine is loud and outgoing, what's the perfect melancholy going to be? Quiet
Introverted.
and introverted.
Yep.
And they're the ones when you're talking to them, they know the powerful and perfect melancholies know they have a quiet voice. So as you start talking to them, they know they have to project. But as they get comfortable in the conversation, they get softer and softer and go back to who they are naturally.
Yeah.
You're having to go, what? I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah.
The very time conscious, scheduled kind of person. They're the perfect melancholy. And that means that, well, they want perfection in their own lives, but they expect it from others as well. And nobody measures up. So this person tends to be disappointed or depressed more than any of the other personalities, hence represented by the color blue.
Yep.
Then we go to what I call the powerful choleric personality, represented by the color red. And this is the natural boss of life.
Yeah.
Even if they're not the boss, they are telling other people how to do it. And even as a child, they're organizing their friends, pushing them around. So that's the powerful choleric. They can tend to be rude and they can tend to be bossy if they are functioning in their weaknesses. So that's the powerful choleric. And then opposite of that is the peaceful phlegmatic. And I list the peaceful phlegmatic last, not because they're least important, because of course there's no such thing as least.
Right. It's all equal.
But they are the least obvious to identify. The other three kind of live life in the extreme.
Yeah.
The peaceful phlegmatic is not extremely anything.
Yeah.
Represented by the color green because they're very calming and peaceful. They're the background kind of person. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be a boss.
Yeah.
They can go to sales training, they can go to management classes, and as an intelligent human being, they can learn to do something that's not natural to them. However, at the end of the day, they are exhausted if they are from that kind of role.
Yep.
Because all day long, they're having to do what's not natural to them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they are just tired. They are wiped out. And so the peaceful phlegmatic is more the background kind of person. And they're the ones who would say, if you were to say to them, would you like coffee or tea? They're going to say, oh, I don't care, whatever's easiest.
Yep. Yep. Oh man.
So
I feel
probably
like,
just on that, you can identify people. I mean, I can tell by your
yeah,
expression that you're like, oh yeah, I can see that's,
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm coming sort of out of that and more into my red, but yeah. And so when I took the assessment, it was interesting because one of the directions you give is don't answer these questions based on who you have had to be in certain situations. Answer from your authentic, like who actually are you? So it was easy for me when I was taking it to go, okay, but that's who I was like trained to be. Who am I
yes.
really? This is so interesting. So, what happens when two very different personality types end up in a relationship together?
Well, that's what normally happens. We
Yeah.
are, I believe we naturally are attracted to someone who is opposite from us.
Yeah.
Because I believe that if we take our fingers like as a graph, I'm strong where I got my fingertip, and then the web is weakness, strength, weakness, and
Yeah.
my spouse or partner, whatever you want to use, is filling in those
Mm-hmm.
gaps. And
Yeah.
so I believe that's the way God naturally designed us.
Yeah.
However, truly, if you don't understand these concepts, I don't know how anyone like that stays married,
Right.
because you're so
So different.
my husband and I are so opposite, and he's my second husband. And my first husband, I'm saying, when both my husbands are mostly melancholy. My
Yeah.
first husband was so melancholy that it was difficult to figure out what his secondary was, because he was so
Wow.
melancholy. But
Yeah.
then I realized that with him, I was always in trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend at the time whose husband was also mostly the perfect melancholy, but his secondary was the green, the peaceful, phlegmatic, and she was never in trouble.
Yeah.
And I was always in trouble in my marriage
Mm-hmm.
because I always fell short. That helped me realize my husband was melancholy and the choleric, but
Yeah.
mostly the melancholy, and I'm these two. Now,
Yep.
honestly, when I like to say, if you have one square in common, it's an easier marriage. Doesn't mean it's easy. I mean, no, every
Yeah. Yeah.
relationship takes work.
Yep.
No, no question. Every relationship takes work. But if you both have the powerful choleric square in common, then you're both outgoing. You've got some outgoing. You're both going to be going go, go, go. Now, my husband now is these two,
Yeah.
close to 50-50. And I'm the top two. He's the bottom two, the green and the blue. Notice those are cool colors because that's
Uh-huh.
low key
Grounded.
personality.
Yep.
The top two are hot colors because we are the ones that are kind of tightly wound.
Yeah.
And my personality is always going go, go, go.
Yep.
And his personality is going no, no, no. I mean, he says to me, do we have to have something every night of the week? And
And you're
I'm
like,
like, no,
yes, we do. Yeah.
we only have something 2 nights of the week. It's not every
But for
night.
him, it feels like every
Yes,
night.
exactly, exactly. And when you understand that, it makes such a difference. And I understand that for him, he's a CPA, which is perfect for that personality type.
Yep.
He sits in a windowless room. It's tax season, and he's doing all that stuff. But when he comes home, he literally needs an hour in the recliner.
Yeah.
He needs to
Chill,
chill.
shut it down. Yep.
Uh-huh.
I'm that way too. Which is interesting because when I was younger, I was so outgoing and I'm still outgoing, but whenever I was working in my corporate life, people were always like, oh my God, you are so on all the time. And I said, would it surprise you to know that when I'm at home, I'm like very quiet. I do a lot of relaxing. Like I
Yeah.
don't have this like high energy because work was like what it gave it to me. And then
Yes.
it exhausted me. So I think I'm actually like yellow green more. I can't remember. I don't know if you have mine in front of
No,
you,
I,
but
I don't get the
yeah.
results. Results
Yeah.
don't come to me.
Okay. So can people change or are personalities fixed?
Well, they're basically fixed. That is, it's part of our DNA. And
Yeah.
I often will ask it when I'm speaking, I'll ask people in the audience, how many of you have more than one children or more than one child? And I'm generally speaking in women's groups.
Yeah.
And almost everybody in the audience has more than one child. And I'll say, well, could you tell from the womb that the second child was different from the first child.
Yes.
And they all say,
Yes, you can. It's
yes, you can.
crazy.
Yeah. So they are, I mean, it is something it's hardwired, but, and this is another thing that I think is really different from this program to some of the others, is that we encourage people to grow.
Yeah.
To grow beyond your natural personality. We encourage people to, first off, work to minimize their weaknesses. And we have a whole chapter on living in your strength in my book, Wired That Way.
Yeah.
And so I encourage people to grow, to acquire skills that are not natural to them.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't change your personality. When you're tired, when you're feeling sick, when things are maybe not going your way and you're a little grumpy, you're going to go back to the real you.
Yep.
Because stepping outside of that takes energy.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the energy, you're going to revert back. But you can learn. The example I always use is that I've had people say to me, Marita, you are the most organized person I've ever met. And it's not true. But I have learned to function. Now, I hate to say in the past week, I messed up 2 podcasts. I try to be really organized. I have the calendar.
Hey, it happens. Yeah.
But sometimes something happens outside the system.
Yep.
And I had a podcast interview scheduled last Friday. And fortunately, the person I was with might have been you. Did you forget it? No.
I forgot too, because I went to lunch.
It was you.
Yep.
And I had double booked myself, and I had a radio interview.
Yeah.
And I had somehow not put the radio interview on my calendar.
Oh, no.
And I'm all, cute and ready to talk to you. And my phone rings, and it's from
He's
Florida.
like, where are you?
And I answer it, and it says, hi, this is Carol from W whatever. Are you ready for your interview?
And you're like, yes, I am.
I'm like,
absolutely. Totally remembered that.
Live in 3 minutes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I had just enough time to send you an email that, oops, I double booked.
And I was like, don't worry about it, because
I'm so grateful.
Yeah, no worries.
But my point is, I try to be really organized. I work at it. I have systems, but it's still not natural for me.
Yeah.
I still mess up. Fortunately, it's not too often, because I really have learned.
You're also human, so
Yeah,
it's allowed. It's allowed. Okay, so we have about less than 10 minutes left, but so I want to ask, you've been doing this a long time, like 50 years, studying people. What do you wish everyone understood about themselves?
What do I wish everyone understood? It's easy. I just had to think about it for just a moment. And that is kind of what we were just talking about, is that you want to grow.
Yeah.
You don't want to live in your weaknesses. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at this when you took the personality profile, but you got an email with links to a bunch of additional material.
Yep.
And one of the things that additional material gives you is a chart of strengths and weaknesses. And I'm showing you.
That's cool.
This is the paper personality profile that I have in my hand. But there's a list of strengths and the list of weaknesses for each personality type. And a lot of people will use this as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a melancholy, and I'm thinking of someone in particular in my personal life, not my husband, but someone I know. And this person will say, oh, well, you know me, I'm melancholy, so. And she uses that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And that's exactly not what you should do, because you want to grow. Remember, we said this is the starting place.
Yeah.
So the goal is, once you are aware of your weaknesses, and maybe you don't have every single one on this chart, obviously it's a generalization, but once you're aware of those, when you see that behavior coming out of you, you can go, oops, that's a weakness. I want to not be that. So the goal is first to live in your strengths.
Yeah.
And then secondly, to acquire strengths that are not natural to you, that make you a more balanced person. So the main thing is do not use who you are as an excuse.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like.
And that's where other people often get turned off towards these general concepts, whether they're mine or someone else's, because people do use it as an excuse. I mean, it's popular sandwich like me. It's like, oh, well, I'm late. That's kind of, that's how I am. But, that's really irritating to other people.
Right. You got to own the good, the bad, and everything in between
Yeah, and grow.
and grow. Yes. So, what do you feel like a fulfilled life, right, looks like from your perspective in relationships when you understand your personality at a deeper level?
Well, and ideally, you want to be in a job role or in a life,
Yeah.
whatever it is that allows you to blossom,
Yeah.
that allows you to use
Oof.
your strengths. As we talked about earlier, we mentioned it specifically for the peaceful phlegmatic. But if you're working in something, if your daily role in life, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's work or whether it's being a mom or whatever, I'm newly retired, except for I'm committing this year to moving this project forward
Yeah.
because my book, Wired That Way, which we haven't really mentioned, but it's been published now for 20 years.
Wow.
2006 is its 20th anniversary, and it has been continuously published, continuously relevant, and
Yeah.
selling for 20 years. And so I'm kind of making, but now that I'm retired, I'm like, well, kind of having fun is my job.
Yeah.
How great is that? And
Well, I
but
love what you're saying because I think this is so important for people to hear that if you are squeezing yourself into a life that is unaligned with who you are,
mhm,
it's gonna feel real bad.
it's going to make you really tired. It's not that you
Yeah.
can't do it,
Right. Of course.
because we're, as an intelligent human being, we can learn skills that are not natural to us.
Right.
But ultimately, I mean, honestly, it can lead people to really emotional issues, breakdown
Yeah.
type, you hear people at burnout and things like that. It's because they're doing stuff that isn't their best skill set.
Yeah. I talk to women all the time that are going through this. I see it more in midlife, but I
Mhm.
see it in young people too. When I have conversations with young women in their late 20s saying like, I kind of want to do this, or I'm not really sure, but this, societal pressure that we're
Yes,
supposed to be this certain person.
right.
And
And
I love
we
this.
have to learn, and we have to earn a living. And
Exactly. You got to make money, but I love this. And I will link Wired That Way in the show notes so people can purchase it for themselves because I feel like there is so much value in not just understanding yourself a little bit better, but then having the self-awareness to let people to understand like what might be irritating, for lack of a better word, about you so that you can bridge a conversation and say, yeah, that must be hard, you
yeah,
know?
and one of the early chapters in the book, and this is one of the other things that's unique to this program, is that like I talk about what I call the visual clues. And
Mm.
that's how do you identify someone's personality without them taking a personality profile? Because if you're in a difficult relationship with someone, it's hard to go up to them and say, "Excuse me, I'm having a tough time with you.
Yeah.
Could you take this personality profile?"
Yeah.
But if you know what to look for, which I have a whole chapter on that for each personality, I find you can more accurately, almost more accurately, identify someone else's personality than they can themselves. Because
Mm.
by the time you get to midlife, people have had what their parents wanted them to be, what their
Yep.
teachers wanted them to be, what their spouses wanted them to be, what their bosses wanted them to be. And so often people in the middle of life think they're a certain way. And the example I always use is if you've got a few people standing around a water cooler, let's just say,
Hmm.
and someone says to someone, "Oh, you are so whatever," use whatever adjective you want. And that person says, "I am not." And everybody else around goes, "Oh,
Yes,
yes,
you
you
are. Yeah.
are." And they're like, "Really?" That's what I mean by, sometimes people, they're
Yep.
really, but if you live with or work with someone day in and day out, you see them at their best, you see them at their worst, and you have this knowledge, then you can almost more accurately identify them than they can themselves. And then once you understand their strengths and weaknesses, you can begin to adjust your approach to that
Mm.
and your expectations.
I love that. Well, Marita, thank you so much for today. This was so fun.
Goes by
I
so
am
fast.
absolutely, you sold me your book. I'm buying it.
Well,
So,
if you happen to be a Kindle Unlimited member, it's free.
oh, I am a Kindle Unlimited member. Lucky day for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for
And
this kind of book, I think is good in paper because